It's my people, Father Paul here. So, looking at this thing with Deion Jackson Miller, and two conversations. I want you to listen to the conversations and tell me what is your thinking. Is this a general view she has, or is there some kind of flip flopping? Listen to this and let me know what you think.
For staying with us as we continue with you on Beyond the Headlines. All right, just a quick response to a question I've been getting about what kind of documents can be filed in court. When you filing documents in a court case, you go to the court's registry, right? The workers there are clerks and so on. They're really just taking the documents from you. They're going to stamp it. They're going to put it into their system. They're going to give you back your stamped copies. You keep your copies. You have to serve a set on the other party in the dispute. The people who accept the documents are not going through the papers to see whether or not all of this can be admitted as evidence. That's going to happen when you go to case management conference, and the lawyers then, having got the documents and go through them, will say, my lord or my lady, paragraphs 5 to 7 we believe should be struck out because it's hearsay or because it's inadmissible for what other reason. So the point at which you're filing documents, nobody's going through the documents at that point to see whether or not they're admissible or not. All right, Dr. Dayton Campbell joins us now. Thank you so much. We appreciate you talking to us.
Hi, good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners.
Dr. Campbell, you issued a statement continuing to deny allegations against you. As you probably have heard by now, a number of groups, we just interviewed 2 representatives, have called on you to step aside. Do you intend to do so?
I think they may be a little bit precautious in their assessment and coming to a conclusion on the matter. This that is taking place is malicious and politically motivated. Karen Cross is a malicious liar. And,
all right, hold on for me. In the same way that I wouldn't allow her to come on here and refer to you in certain ways, I'm going to ask you to do the same. So let's stick with your responses. You can reject without using certain words and certain phrases.
Yeah, my vocabulary is enough. I can. She has made some spurious allegations from which I have sued her. And in defense of that, what has happened is that now she has produced some statements from which the names of the individuals are redacted. So there are no names of anybody on the documents that she has submitted to the court. So I don't even know who it is that she's saying these allegations would apply to, because no names have been submitted for anybody. This that is taking place is totally politically motivated. If you recall, in the beginning of this matter, one of the first things that was done was that a letter of resignation was prepared for me to sign. And even if you go on before that...
Prepared by whom?
By one of the defendants, one of the persons who is also being sued by me. It was prepared and sent to me that I must sign this letter and everything will go away. That's one of the first things. The media was calling me about it, and I said to them, why are you calling me about a letter that is not signed? And even if you go before that, recall what took place in Northwestern St. Anne. I was one of the MPs that had somebody who's a known PNP going up as an independent with a deliberate attempt to split the votes to cause me to lose the election. All of this is politically motivated. That's the reason why no evidence has been provided to the police.
All right, let me ask you though, because what, for instance, Dr. Monroe has said is that he's cognizant of the fact that these are unproven allegations. He said, however, given the fact that what appears to be happening here is that there are these 3 new statements purported to be coming from 3 people making allegations against you, albeit, as you said, redacted. He says he believes the police needs to reopen investigations to ascertain whether there is any basis to what is happening. Is that a reasonable call, you think?
I don't think so, because one, I don't know if he was aware that the documents are redacted. If he's aware of that, I don't know if he's aware that the date on the documents are March 1, March 12, and March 18, all of which took place prior to the previous investigation, at which time Ms. Cross went in to the police, gave a statement, and the police concluded that she came in, gave her statement, she wasn't able to provide any evidence, nor was she able to direct it to anyone who is willing to give a statement. As of such, they concluded that this is a baseless allegation.
But hear my question though. I'm asking you then because Prof. Monroe is saying this is now in the public domain. These additional allegations are in the public domain. The police in their statement on the matter had said, and let me just quote, if Ms. Cross or any other person wishes to provide credible information about this matter at a later date, we are willing to reopen our investigations. Prof. Monroe is saying, given that statement, these statements have been made, the police should investigate to ascertain whether they are credible or not. You're saying the police should not. And
no, I'm not saying that. No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, that's what you actually answered. That's what you actually answered, though.
Oh dear, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
No, let me be very clear.
Please.
The initial matter was referred to the police by the People's National Party. Was never referred by Ms. Cross. She made the spurious allegations on my birthday to a coordinated day work on March 19th. We referred the matter to the police. The police then investigated, and I'm saying to you that the police investigated in April of this year. The date that she has on the statements that she has submitted that are redacted without names of anybody, the dates on that is March 1, March 12, and March 18. If we are to believe that, it would mean that she was in possession of these from before. So that's the point that I was trying to make. I am, however, inviting the police to investigate the matter. I will subject myself to any form of investigation because I know that I am not guilty of these allegations, and these are people who are wicked beyond measure. Because here's the thing. If you want to take what you gave me in terms of the general secretary position in the party, that's fair game for politics. But there are some other things that you did not give to me that you're also trying to take away. I have, and I've always said it, very difficult to bring with a mother who struggled to bring me to. I worked hard to become a medical doctor at 24, a member of parliament at 28, a law degree by 30. For persons to now come with these allegations that are damning to my, I put up myself to politics here so I can deal with these. Understand that I have a mother who is sitting down listening to these things. I have a daughter who is 14 years of age who is also sitting down hearing these things being said about her father that she knows and loves. And these are just people who are coming up with these allegations that are baseless. Right. Absolutely no proof to anything that they've said.
Having said that then, because you're saying you would welcome an additional police investigation because you're saying you're confident that there is nothing to find. Would that be correct?
Absolutely.
Is it
not all to hide?
Okay. Is it necessarily then, why not accept then the call from Trevor Monroe, Joyce Hewitt et al. To step down during those investigations to say, let me step aside, let the police do what they're doing, and at the end of it, if it is that you're so confident that there will be nothing found, is there not merit to saying, okay, let me just remove myself from the scene while that investigation goes ahead?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because that's exactly what the perpetrators intended to happen. Remember, I started out by saying that the first day they came with it, what followed it was a letter of resignation. That is exactly what they intended. Because what? Of the role of the GenSec in the People's National Party. The position of that person as the person in charge of the organization in terms of the groups and those things. That's the individual that you interface with. So the aim is to remove that individual so that you can now go ahead to have a challenge at the presidency of the party. Now, if you were to have individuals just come up with these baseless accusations and you accuse yourself, they would end up achieving exactly the political goal that they're trying to achieve.
But not given what you've said, though.
Understand that reality.
No, I hear what you're saying, but that would not, based on what you have said, right, and based on the sequence of events as you have outlined it, that could hardly be the outcome here if, as you're saying, the police aren't going to find anything. Because, for instance, the initial police investigation was completed in a matter of weeks. The one that ended with them saying that Ms. Cross didn't provide anything or anyone else to establish the allegations as credible. This would be a matter of ascertaining who are these three people, do they exist? If they do exist, are their allegations credible? So surely that is something that would also be completed in a relatively short period of time, and you've already said you welcome the investigation. So if it is, let me just finish the question so you know what you're responding to. So if it is then that is going to be the case, the police would wrap up their investigation. Based on what you're saying, the police would say, okay, we found nothing here. That would be a matter of weeks. That could not then lead to the kind of political ramifications you're talking about in terms of removal of a GenSec, undermining a leader, bringing down the current leadership structure of the party, whatever. All
right, let me explain a little bit of the internal happenings in the party. If you
without defaming anybody, right?
No, that's not my intention at all.
Okay.
So this is what happens. If you were to ask the GenSec to vacate the position, whether it's temporary or permanent, then what would happen is that an interim person would come into play. What would happen in terms of the management at that time? You don't know. What would happen in terms of we're now into conference season, at which time you elect persons who say, for instance, sit on the NEC of the party, which is where chairman and the GenSec of the party are elected. So you may look at it and say, well, it won't have any impact. But if you remove the GenSec for 3 months, you may, in that 3 months, you may have already caused all of the conferences to happen, and you have already elected the NEC member during that time period. So I'm saying, I don't have a problem in asking, as we did at the get-go, for the police to investigate the matter thoroughly. I will subject myself to any form of investigation. I too believe that this is one of the most heinous crimes that could be committed. And it is one of the worst things that somebody could make an allegation against you about. It is something that I would never even consider.
Do you know if is your party supporting you in the positions you're taking here?
You know, Ms. Jackson, I'm not going to euphemize the situation. I do have support, but there are also persons who are not supportive.
Well, I don't mean individuals, I beg your pardon, within the party. I mean in terms of the party position. We've heard them say they're going to send out a statement. I haven't seen one yet. I know Parliament has been going on, so we haven't been able to get some of the key executives.
There's an officers' meeting to take place tomorrow morning. So you may not get it until then.
So to your knowledge, a statement, a position has not yet been reached?
Not.
But a lot of people who are more knowledgeable of the law don't always think you made the right decision. So for instance, you've always spoken very frankly about the importance of the prosecutor's office, the prosecutor as being a quote-unquote minister of justice, meaning you're not supposed to be running down convictions, you're supposed to be acting in the public interest and wherever justice would lead you. But there have been criticisms either that you haven't prosecuted where you should or you've prosecuted where you shouldn't. Let me just give you one specific example. For instance, the notorious Irwin rape case, 2012. Terrible case. 4 women and an 8-year-old child raped. 2 brothers were charged with the rapes, and public sentiment against them was so strong. At first, they couldn't even get a lawyer. It was that bad. DNA tests showed they were not a match for the rapists. Didn't place them at the scene, but in what a lot of people thought was a travesty of justice, your office said they were proceeding with the prosecution. And in fact, not only were they not found guilty in 2013, in 2014, DNA implicated another man entirely. Do you look back on that as a mistake?
You know, the unfortunate thing with a lot of what I call the social media judges and prosecutors and police officers and defense counsel is that they never have the file with all the statements to look at. A prosecutor, you have to make a judgment call, which is why in the Leonie Allen matter, the Privy Council said that when a seasoned prosecutor makes a decision not to prosecute or to prosecute, once there's a viable case, it's not easily disturbed in terms of judicial review. That was a matter that I would say was on the borderline. When you looked at the statements, the complainants were quite clear in respect of their identification, because the evidence was, in terms of the statements, that the faces of their assailants, especially during the sexual act, was inches away from their face. That is the evidence on paper. Now, in respect of the prosecution of the matter, remember the prosecution has to put up the case that is the best available material. You have the rules of evidence, the judge has a duty. So you have the eyewitnesses saying one thing, you have scientific evidence saying possibly another. I have done cases where the scientific evidence in terms of what is the basis in terms of some issue to do with what was examined was not correct. So what we decided to do was to put everything out there in the wash, because as a matter of law, there are safeguards at every step of the way. And by the time the two ladies gave evidence, their credibility, I think one of them especially, the credibility under cross-examination was found so wanting that as a matter of law, in terms of what the case law on credibility says, we were obliged to offer no further evidence. So there are safeguards along the way, but you have to balance that with the fact that the public in Irwin, they would have been aware that the witnesses, in terms of the scenario that they are telling, in respect of what happened, they were face to face with one person on top of them. That is what they're saying. We weren't there. So it is better in terms of the public interest of the public in Irwin, and knowing that you have safeguards in the rules. Let it all come out in the wash, and that is exactly what happened.
In this case, though, because what you're describing as public interest, with respect, sounds a little bit more like pandering to public opinion.
Not at all, not at all.
In a situation where you had DNA.
No, but I'm saying to you, in my experience, I am the first prosecutor in Jamaica to use DNA in a case called Bernard Chang.
I'm aware. I was
right?
wanting to
I'm
be
the
at the time.
first person, and it was a very difficult case to prepare because it had never been ventilated in the courts. So I know about DNA evidence, but as I said, it's a balancing act. And sometimes, just like the judges and sentencing, it's a balancing act. And it was one of what I would call a borderline case. So we had to put ourselves in a situation where everything came out into the wash. It's all well and good, and it's so easy. I set myself the task of opening up the office and giving access. But it is a double-edged sword, because so you give access, you have social media, and you know the saying that sometimes a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Persons may opine or give an opinion, but you don't have the advantage that we would have, which is to have the entire file before you.
Couple of things, because you're being respectfully a little bit dismissive there of critics.
I'm not being dismissive, but
this was not coming from the social media massive alone. A lot of this was coming from learned people with lots of legal
who had read the file
in the community.
Had they read the file?
But you yourself use the word borderline.
Did any of the persons giving the criticism? Come on, I came here in peace. Did any of these persons criticize it? Yes or no? Did any of them read the file? Unless they had read the file and all the statements, interviewed the witnesses, I would ask them to give way to the professionals who did. Okay?
We use the word borderline. If you have a borderline case, should the benefit not be in favor of them?
No, because you have the public interest. You have eyewitnesses who were assaulted in the most egregious way, who are saying in their statement that these men were on top of me, inches away from my face. That is what their statements are saying. What would we say to those witnesses? What would we say to those witnesses?
So at this point, 2025, you look back and you still believe that?
I probably would have made the same decision.
Okay.
Because we have the witnesses, the pendulum of justice. Gone are the days where the pendulum of justice only swings in the direction of the accused. The victims have rights. And if the law allows everything to come out in the wash, then that is where the balance will be kept.
Okay, we're at our first break. You're listening